All right, hello. I wanted to take a moment just to welcome you to your third learning module. So week 3, holy moly, it feels crazy to me, like we're rocking and rolling here pretty quickly, but that is the way that the semester goes. I always feel like things move super, super fast. So I wanted to take a moment just to preview what's out there in your week 3 learning module, and then maybe give a few thoughts around some of the things that I have in terms of what we've done over the past several weeks already. So with that, we are moving into more corn. So you'll notice in your week 3 module, you are reading 3 chapters, which seems like a lot, but it's really not as bad as it looks. So there are 3 chapters, about 30-ish pages, 30 to 40 pages there. And this really talks through the journey of corn, if you will. So this idea that we plant the corn, we harvest the corn, and then the process that it goes through in terms of getting loaded onto a truck, moving to a grain elevator, being distributed to a factory where it's turned into high fructose corn syrup, and then the realities around that process. So you will have an opportunity to learn more about that. So with that, you have your discussion board for the week. So as I have kind of told you throughout the semester, it's really smart to go in here and copy this and paste it into a Word document, type your response, and then come back and post that within your discussion board. This week, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to be introduced to a steer, so a male cow that's been castrated, male calf that's been castrated, and they're going to talk about his journey from birth to weaning, which means no longer drinking his mother's milk, to moving on to a farm, ranch, or feedlot, or as Michael Pollan refers to them as CAFOs, so a feedlot operation, and eventually being trucked to a slaughterhouse. And we won't work through that slaughter process yet. We will eventually, but we're not there quite yet. So really this idea of from birth to feedlot, and really the impact that corn plays within that journey. So I really want you to think through that as you're reading, especially that chapter 4. And then you're going to have a chance to look in your pantry or in your fridge or somewhere in your house and see if you can find what has been identified as the most valuable food product that's refined from corn. And I give you hints in that. So you should be able to easily figure out what that is and then be able to find an item within your household that contains one of those things. Your assignment for this week, instead of a quiz or anything associated with that, is really thinking about, because you're introduced to steer 534, or you can name your steer. So you might choose to call your steer ribeye, because he turns into a tasty ribeye when it's all said and done. I want you to think about, as you're reading through that information, really this idea of whether or not the ethical treatment of animals matters, and then think about how corn plays a role in that journey, right? So think about the meat that you're purchasing. Can you easily identify where it comes from? Do you know how it was processed, how it was slaughtered? For example, we raise our own pigs. So we know exactly what those pigs are fed. We know when they were born. It sounds gruesome, but we actually name them. We take them to a butcher shop. We choose what cuts we want. We go pick up our animal and we put it in the freezer. So we're very connected with this process of where our pork comes from. We do something similar with our steers. We have a friend that raises cattle for slaughter. And so we buy a half a beef every year. So we don't purchase meat at the grocery store, largely because of some of these things, right? We don't know how the animal was raised. We don't know what it was fed. The process it went through to get to the grocery store, those sorts of things. If you don't consume meat, so I know that I have some vegetarians and some vegans in my class, talk about why you made that choice. This is a good opportunity to really reflect on the reality behind I choose not to consume animal products, and this is why. So tell me about that. So you'll have an opportunity to reflect on that and then upload that assignment for this week. And then your Let's Connect for this week is largely centered around, it's called time management, but I try to frame this discussion more around managing priorities. I don't love the words time management. And the reason why is largely because at the end of the day, and what you're probably going to learn from this exercise is there's plenty of time in the day. It really boils down to my priorities and how I'm managing those priorities throughout the day, and really what I'm choosing to focus my energy on, right? So here I give you some examples, and I recognize, especially after reading a lot of your week 2, like your motivation survey and the things that motivate you, I recognize that there are a lot of you in this class that are juggling a lot of things. And so I've given you some examples here, right? Like the single mom that's raising her kids, working a job, tackling school at the same time, maybe a full credit load. There are several students in this class that are earning college credit while you're in high school. And so the realities around juggling being a high school student while being a college student, the pressures that come with high school graduation, maybe extracurricular activities, those sorts of things. I have a handful of you that haven't been to school in a while, right? So this idea of coming back and maybe starting over, or you went to college right out of high school, took a break, and now you're coming back, and this fear of, will I fail again? Do I have the skills that it needs to be able to navigate through this? There are some first-generation college students in here, so that reality behind, do I have the resources and the support that I need in order to be successful? And so you may fall in one of those scenarios, you may fall in several of those scenarios, and it is this reality that I understand that you are juggling a lot of things. And so in order to be successful, like, how do we provide those tools and support for you to be successful? And I do believe fundamentally one of those tools is how you manage your priorities. So what you're going to do is you're going to come through and you're going to watch this TED Talk associated with managing priorities. She gives some really great examples. And then attached within this learning module, there is a worksheet. The worksheet's also kind of copy and pasted here. If you choose to work through it from this, you certainly can. I would encourage you to actually just come up and open the attached worksheet and work through that. This gives you an opportunity to really think about what your goals and your priorities are. So think about it short term, right? So I think we have a tendency to really think big picture, right? Which is helpful because that helps us know, like, as we're going down the road, where on the map are we going, right? But as we're going down the road, we have lots of places potentially that we might stop or slow down a little bit to enjoy the scenery, right? And so I think thinking about what are our priorities in those short time frames is a helpful skill and a helpful thought along the way to that. So you're going to be thinking about that. You're going to answer some of these questions related to what those priorities are. And then you have this time log, right, where you're going to come in here and list some of your activities. When you open this worksheet, it's actually going to provide you with my example. So you can certainly use my example if that's helpful. If it's not helpful, I totally understand. But if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see an example of basically what I'm looking for. I recognize that it's not for everyone to go through and map out how you spend all of your time on a daily basis, but I do think it is a helpful exercise to maybe just take pause and think about how you are spending your time. So some people do this. They are like, that wasn't helpful at all. Other people do this and they're like, whoa, this helps me see that, again, there is plenty of time in the day, and where are those time wasters, right? So as I'm thinking about my priorities and I'm thinking about the goals that I've set for myself, where am I wasting, if you will, time? So you will upload that completed worksheet for your Let's Connect for this week. And then the last thing that you have for this week is that pretest. So if you didn't complete the pretest in the third learning module, you will want to ensure you complete it within this within the second learning module. You will want to make sure that you complete it within this third learning module, because that is a big component of this course in general. So that information is sent forward to the folks that collaborate on CWI 101 as a whole. So it helps us know as a whole the students that we're serving. So not just the students within this specific course. So with that, I just want to leave with a final thought. I was watching the news this last week, and I was reminded that I forgot to explain to you why the question, what is for dinner, is so complicated. And it's a question that I don't know if there's any moms or dads in the room that cook meals, or even if like friends come over or something along those lines. And if they ask that question, what's for dinner? I can feel the hair on the back of my head just like cringe, because I hate that question. Because it's always like, oh, it's such a complicated question, right? Like there's so many things associated with that question. I was watching the news last week, and they were talking about food decisions and how subconsciously we make about 160 food decisions a day. Total food decisions is about 220, but 160 of those are subconsciously, right? So we're not even thinking about, I open the fridge, I grab this. I think a lot during the day about that question. What is for dinner? Are we going to have this? Are we going to have that? If I make this for my kids, is this the long-term impact that food choice is going to have? Do we have the necessary ingredients for this? Is this how many calories does this have? What's the sugar? What's the fat? Right? Like, so we think about food a lot. And so I think it is helpful as we're moving through the semester to really remind ourselves that we are thinking about food several 220 times a day, a lot. And as we're working through this, I hope you're recognizing that corn is definitely making an appearance within your food. And I also want you to start thinking about this reality, especially if you consume meat, just how disconnected you've come with the meat that you consume. So the reality is most of you are going to work through this assignment this week. You're probably going to find that you can't easily track where your meat comes from, and you can't easily identify where that animal was raised, how it was processed, what it was fed, those sorts of things. Again, at the end of the day, you might decide as a consumer that doesn't really matter. Some of you, at the end of the day, you might be like, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that, and choose to potentially make a different food choice or just a more educated food choice. So with that, I will leave you with your week 3 learning module. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic week.